Hello, my name is Spike Lee, and besides making film, you may not know I'm a tenured film professor. I teach film, and I love movies. And so we're going to be talking about some films that I love. Director Elia Kazan and the writer Bud Schulberg. The first I want to talk about is a pairing of a writer and director. Two films they did back to back. The director Elia Kazan and the writer, my good friend who's no longer with us, Bud Schulberg. And the two films they did back to back, On the Waterfront and A Face in the Crowd. On the Waterfront, great script, great acting, directing, cinematography. I mean, the whole boxing thing came from Bud. I mean, a lot of the actors in the film were ex-boxers that Bud told Kazan, you know, you should look at these guys and put them in. Bud's true love was boxing. He's in the Boxing Hall of Fame as a writer. I was very fortunate to meet Bud Schulberg. Me and Bud were tight, and Bud took an interest in me, and we talked about writing. And in fact, we wrote a script together called Save Us Joe Louis. It's about the friendship between Max Schmeling and Joe Louis. It's an epic film, and he was at those two Joe Louis Schmeling fights. The first one, Schmeling knocked out Joe Louis, but the second fight, it was widely thought that whoever won this fight would determine the winner of World War II. And it stars FDR, Hitler, Eleanor Roosevelt, Goebbels, Sugar Ray Robinson. I mean, it's an epic. And during Bud's last year, he called me once a week saying, "Spike, did you get the money yet? Spike, did you get the money yet?" And I made a promise to Bud that one day, soon, that we get the money, and I'm going to keep that promise and get that film made. It's a great script. It was wonderful working with Bud. I've always been amazed by how Kazan and Bud worked together. It was a great partnership, and they made two of my favorite films. I never got to meet Marlon Brando, but after Do the Right Thing came out, he called me, must have been like 2 in the morning, and he said he had seen Do the Right Thing and he wanted me to do a film about Native Americans. I never heard from him after that, but it was just, and I had a note. He sent me a note too, and I gotta find that. I remember he signed it, but it just said Marlon. But I wanted him I wanted Brando on that note too. But amazing film. The film they made directly after that is called Face in the Crowd. And Bud had the crystal ball in this film. He predicted the power of television, even Viagra. In the film they call it Vitajex. But it's really about the power of the media at that time, television, and how it could be harmful, how it could be dangerous, how it could make people believe anything. And that film applies specifically today to the people who are in the White House. So those are I think that's, if that was somebody programming one of these retro theaters, that'd be a great double bill. Kazan Schulberg's. Elia Kazan's direction, Bud Schulberg's writing, On the Waterfront and A Face in the Crowd. That's the double bill. Martin Scorsese. My late mother, Jacqueline Shelton Lee, she loved films. My father hated films. A great jazz bassist, composer. My father, Billy, did the score for She's Could Have It, School Days, Do the Right Thing, and Mo Better Blues. Anyway, my father hated films, but he loved sports. So two of my biggest loves, cinema, music, and sports, came from my parents. Anyway, my mother would take me to movies. I was the eldest. My mother would take me to movies because I was my mother's movie date. My father wouldn't go to movies. He hated films, particularly for how they portrayed, black people at that time. My mother was responsible for me being a great fan of Martin Scorsese. She took me to see Mean Streets. Whatever year that was, that's the year we went. At that time, I didn't want to be a filmmaker. I didn't even know people make films. You just went to the movie theater. But that film really had an impact on me. And I remember the first time I met Marty. I was at NYU. He had a screening of After Hours. And afterwards, I went up to him and I told him the story. He still remembers it. So I knew I made an impact on him just by talking to him, telling him how much I liked the film. And we've been friends ever since. That was my first time I saw Robert De Niro, Harvey. And what was familiar about the film is that my family, we were the first black family in Cobble Hill, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. And back then, it was Stone Town American. I mean, that was it because of the docks. Cobble Hill's right next to the docks, and the docks was, at that time in Brooklyn, it was all Italian American. So I was very kind of familiar with those guys that are in that film, Mean Streets. So it was very gratifying to me to being a young kid growing up, seeing these films, getting to meet the people later on, and not just films. I mean, growing up, my heroes were Willie Mays, Joe Namath, Muhammad Ali, and I got to meet these people. I became friendly with these people, so I got to work with Marty. I'll tell you another story. We have kind of a similar gruesome taste, and he called me up one day, Spike, I want to see you something. I want to show you something. And it was Goodfellas. And there's a scene where they had the guy's head in the vice. He was showing me something new he's had to cut out. Because in the scene, his eyes pop out of his head. And it's funny. Me and Mario are dying laughing in the back. Look at that, look at that. We're like, oh, they're not going to let you do that. He said, I know. That's what I wanted to see before I had to cut it out. I mean, we are that type of, you might say dark humor, but I said, how'd you do that? He said, special effects, Spike, special effects. And that the guy's head was in a vice. He kept going. Wow. I remember that. You said, show me more. Say, oh, that's all you see, Spike. That's it. I've been blessed. I'd like to thank my mother for my love of cinema. Charles Laughton. In film school, NYU graduate film school, that's where I really began to look at films. And one film that had a great impact was Charles Laughton's Night of the Hunter. And this is the only film that he directed, black and white, very, very scary film. I love it. And Robert Mitchum, that character he played is terrifying. He is tattooed on his fingers, love and hate. And it made such an impact on me that later on, I connected. Kids start wearing these finger rings. So I said, wait a minute, we should have love and hate on the thing. And so that's become iconic. But that came from his tattoos, but also the script. That whole speech about love and hate was written by James Agee. We had Radar Rahim say that. We had a couple of changes, but that film, I love that film. And so a lot of these films that, I'm talking about, I show to my students because sometimes they never heard of these films, but they need to see them. And I try to emphasize to them that, great cinema was made before you were born. Great epic films of David Lean. When Ernest Dickerson and I, my great cinematographer and classmate, we were NYU together. Ernest was the best cinematographer in the graduate film school. He shot all my student films. Also shot for me She's Gonna Have It, School Days, Do the Right Thing, Mo Better, And the final film we worked on, Malcolm X. And Ernest and I wanted to make Malcolm X in the spirit of the great epic films of David Lean. Dr. Zhivago, Bridge River Kwai, and especially Lawrence of Arabia. And it just so happened Columbia Pictures had put out a restored version of the film, and Ernest and I went to see it at the Ziegfeld. I just want to say that it's criminal. Somebody should go to jail. That the Ziegfeld is now ballroom. I love that Ziegfeld. I was very fortunate. You know, many years later, I was able to have my premieres at the Ziegfeld. Anyway, Ernest and I went to see the restoration of David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia at the Ziegfeld, and it was just amazing. It was a new print. It redid the sound, the color, and that definitely influenced us, Ernest and I. You know, we wanted Malcolm X to have the epic feel of a David Lean film. It was a big subject, so you know, it needed to be epic. You know, that's why. Not make an epic film is 2 hours. That ain't epic. You gotta be over 3 hours. You know, you tell a big story, it takes time. Malcolm X is a little over 3 hours. Well, I like to say that there's not a law that you have to go to film school to be a filmmaker. Film schools cost a lot of money, and many people make the smart choice that I could buy a camera and lights and a whole bunch of stuff, but I would pay tuition. I just tell my students that there's no such thing as overnight success, that you gotta bust your ass and don't take any shortcuts. If you're doing it to be rich and famous, that's not gonna be enough for when the hardship comes. But if you're doing it because this is what you love, this is your calling, and this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, that will get you over the rough stuff.